So I think we can all agree that we're in the fatigue mode at this point, and we want to continue to do virtual events if we're going to move forward with events. But how do we avoid mundane fatigue and still trying to get people to attend those events? So that's really what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to walk you through 10 different ideas and ways that you can draw people in and continue to be creative, things that I've done for other clients, things that I've seen done for companies that have worked. And I'd love your feedback throughout. That would be great. This is a little bit about me. Adam introduced me at the beginning, but I founded my own company 12 years ago. I've been doing tech PR for 25 years. And I've worked in-house at big companies and also large agencies, some small agencies as well. I was a former journalist. I started out as a journalist for several years. I'm here in New York City, originally from Boston, Massachusetts, though. And I consider myself a storyteller and what I call a media Jedi. So I have to put the logo slide up. So I think every presentation needs one of these. These are some of the companies that I've worked for throughout the years, not just doing events, but media relations, analyst relations, all kinds of stuff that involves corporate communications in general. So let's jump into it. Why I wanted to do a live poll here because I have found that a lot of the Zoom events that I attend, or even these virtual events I attend, I am more engaged when I am either filling out a poll or doing a Q&A, or there's something that I, have to be involved in and I don't, go do my email, check my email, or get up to do something else. So I wanted to do a live poll on why you don't, the folks here don't attend virtual events, or why haven't you attended? Zoom fatigue, we talked about. A lot of the time it's recorded sessions. So you say, oh, I'll catch it later. I'll catch it at a later date. It's overkill. I think we're all feeling this overkill that we miss seeing people, we miss going to events. Do
you want to ask people to put something in the chat where they said, what's
sure. Yeah, I would love that. That would be great.
So Erin's question is people who are not, getting like a zillion webinar invitations or virtual event invitations, why are you not going to them, whereas you might have been going to them before? Just put whatever you think in the chat, and I'll report back to Erin at the end of it.
That'd be awesome. I'd love to see that. Sometimes they provide little value. So you think you go to an event, you last 5 minutes, you jump off because it's just not what you thought it was going to be. And let's face it, some of them are just so boring. So these are some of the reasons why most of us are just opting out these days.
So there's one that came in, which is, I get, I have to pick and choose. I get so many, I have to pick and choose which ones to attend, or not enough time, to go to them all.
Not enough time, right? Right. You got to do your job too. I mean, you could spend all day long on events and just tuning in. It's tough. It's a lot of it is overkill. So I worked with this company, as I mentioned at the very beginning, called T3 Expo. They're an events contractor. They've done a lot of events on a global level. And we worked together on this piece for Forbes, maybe it was a couple months ago together. And in collaborating with lots of companies from, Adobe to other agencies, working with this firm, myself, we put together these 10 ideas for making virtual events a little bit different, and places that you're going to want to attend or tune into. So this is what we call a roadmap for creative thinking when you're planning your next event. And I'm going to walk through each one of these, but I'll just quickly personalize the experience, create virtual rooms, consider a hybrid event, create regional events, deliver bite-sized consumable content, make it live, create a showcase, plan for sequence and choreography, offered tiered pricing, and make it safe. So let me walk you through some of these. This is some that we've done. Personalize the experience. So it is certainly a chance for brands to create these experiences that are meaningful. And I grabbed these two screenshots because I thought the NBA did an amazing job creating these very personalized virtual experiences for fans. And the Celtics fan down the bottom is actually my brother in the green. And he was so excited by this that we all tuned in to watch him, and we all tuned in to want to see him. It was such a personalized experience for him that was created. So I loved this, and I thought the NBA did such an amazing job. Create virtual rooms. I mentioned before I got on this call that I was helping my son, who's in 5th grade, with some of his work. I think if anybody has a school-age child, you've seen them go into breakout rooms. I think that's one of the things that I think the schools have done a great job with. And I think corporations can do a better job with that too, where you offer up these breakout sessions, where we used to have those at events, right? You used to have the keynote, and then you used to go to the certain breakout event that you wanted to attend. So how do we do that? We can still do that virtually, where you're now creating some kind of an exhibit hall that you want to attend, and it allows users to have that choice for what event they want to attend, what they want to go deep dive and learn more about.
Can I just add to that? Because I find that, you know, with these workshop sessions, I quite often will do like have an exercise and then put people into breakout rooms. And I think everybody's a bit sort of weirded out with them. It's like, what's going to happen here? But what I've found is that people love them because, you know, it's a session like this where you've got 10, 20 people attending. It's not a webinar where you've got 100. It's just a much smaller group. It's much more intimate, and people get to know each other. And actually, I think what's happened is that there've been some connections that have been made, and people have gone off and actually done business together. I think there was a question, which is, how do you get people into the virtual room? I mean, the way that, I mean, if you've got a Zoom call, like if you've got like 30 people on a Zoom call and you want to get them into a virtual room, if you're the the host, which I'm right now, there's a little box down at the bottom that says breakout rooms.
Yeah.
And you push that, you say how many breakout rooms you want. You can do it randomly. So, you know, there are 12 people on the call right now. If I did 2 groups, you'd have 6 people in each one. And it's sort of like you suddenly appear, and then the host can then, you know, pop between the groups. So they really work well. There's actually a point here from Wen, which is, I love facilitating in-person and virtual icebreakers and learning activities before the conference talk. So it's a really good way of doing it. Sorry, so carry on. Yeah.
No, I agree. I mean, I see it's way more intimate. There's, you know, the ability, sometimes people don't want to talk in a group of 30 or more people.
Right.
So when you break them down into 6, you're either joining something that you specifically want to be in, you know, where you're able to collaborate and meet other people, or you're in a session now where there's more of a comfort level. So I really like breakout rooms. I see it with my kids, and I see that they're way more engaging in the breakout rooms than they are in a classroom full of 30 people on a Zoom call. So creating hybrid events, and this is something that I take it or leave it, whatever your political side is. I think they've done a really good job with the debates, looking at, okay, do you want to attend the debate in person? If so, we're social distancing, here we are, they're in front of us, or, you know, you can attend watching online. So now you're giving, in a safe way, of course, people the option to say, hey, listen, we're going to get a room, we are going to have a presenter there, and you can either come get a ticket. We're offering, you know, however many the room might hold, 12 people, the first 12 people or 20 people or whatever it might be, to come to the session in person. And so these hybrid events I found are really being well received because people are wearing masks, there is social distancing, there are other necessary COVID requirements being put in place, but people still want to be where the action is. So you offer them the opportunity to either be there or to watch it online. And this goes for regional events. It's kind of the same, but on a smaller scale. And I think, you know, it's very targeted as well. So you may have an event that took place in San Francisco at the Moscone Center where everybody flew in. Instead, now you're looking at maybe taking that and breaking it up into different cities. So are you doing a smaller event in San Diego? Are you doing a smaller event just to take the West Coast, you know, in those West Coast cities, Sacramento, San Francisco? Are you doing it on the East Coast in, you know, maybe Boston, New York, DC, even in the teenier, smaller towns where, you know, you may be able, like Connecticut, for example, you may be able to get folks from Boston and New York to come. It may be just a little bit more effective. Budget still may be limited. People don't want to travel. They don't want to go far from home. Companies are still reluctant. So doing these smaller regional events has been really successful for some of my clients. So we talk about this idea of smaller bite-sized consumable content, or what we call snackable content. And one of the things we talked about at the beginning is it's just information overload, right? You're throwing so much at me. I don't want to do a full day of like 4 hours of an event. Please don't make me do that. I cannot sit at my desk for that long. So I've seen some companies breaking up their events into, you know, 5 days. I was working with one client who was breaking theirs into a month-long session where they would do, you know, a couple of event sessions per week to try to get clients or try to get customers to tune in or prospects to tune in, versus just cramming it all in one day or all within a couple of, you know, 2 or 3 days at a time. It gave people the option to say, okay, well, you know what, I can definitely spread that out. It's something I can do. I'm going to be more open-minded and tuned in. And then once you do those events, take a look at what we talked about at the beginning, some ideas like live polling or real-time Q&A, or things that engage the folks that are on your event virtually. One of the things, John, you talked about is that, and I loved that you could tape at the beginning and then do a live Q&A. And I think that is awesome because that gives you both, right? It gives you that live element that people really want. Because when you're sitting, even as a presenter, when you're presenting to no one and you're presenting to just a screen, sometimes for the presenter, it's very hard. It comes off flat. It doesn't come off like you want it to come off with the energy that you're trying to present. So I've seen clients do live events versus pre-recorded ones, even in a studio or someplace that's not, you know, in their home office. It gives it more of a professional look, but it also gives what I like to call mad props for appearing, you know, approachable. And you know that even if you're doing it in your home, your cat might walk across your screen or your kid might be in the background. I mean, that's what we're used to these days. It feels more personable, less scripted. So folks are really liking the live events as well. Of course, the only hiccup is, you know, certainly technology and room for error and connection and those kinds of things. So if you can make it live and make it work, I'd say do it. I've seen it work really well.
And I'll echo that. Live is definitely preferred. I think you only really want to go to pre-recorded with a live Q&A if you're unsure that you can pull it off technically. And again,
Yeah.
doing a lot of international events with different participants, that's where it gets a little tricky. So, but live is always, I think, the best. It's more authentic.
Yeah, definitely. But I like the hybrid model of what you had done with the taping with the live Q&A, because I think people still want that interaction, right? And the live Q&A allows that. So that's really a cool option. create a high quality showcase. So I saw Oprah do this and I was like, wow, that is awesome. And of course she has all these producers and directors and moderators, but it's something that we can all do now. So she had, when she was doing this, this event that she had camera angle, she had different producers, she had camera angles coming in from one area, she had this Zoom screen in front of her, she had a camera coming in from behind her onto the screen, one at her face. So it made it interesting to watch, where they were cutting from different angles. She had some pre-recorded content, some B-roll that she had thrown in there. And you know who does this really well is sporting events and live sporting events. So consider that if you're looking at a live event or even a taped event for that matter, but getting a producer or getting someone who can be somewhat of a director or a moderator with multiple cameras, it makes it
a couple of points on that. So there's something here from Wen, which I thought was really good, which is as a speaker at a hybrid event, it was way more work for her because they wanted slides ahead of time and a dress rehearsal, and then videotaping at the day of the event. So, you know, there is that. Well, actually, another point, a friend of mine is the chief marketing officer of InterSystems, which is a big data player in the in healthcare. And what they've done is they've done these sort of high quality events with very high profile presenters, and they actually had, you know, like Fauci was actually introduced one of the presenters, and they had different camera angles. And what they did was that because the offices were empty, I think they took one of the conference rooms and they turned it into a studio.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
they created their own in-house studio because they've got the time to do it.
Yep. I mean, there's a lot of space open right now, so that's the good thing. And of course, this is Oprah, but I mean, we have the option to do it too now. I think people expect that when they're seeing events, you know, that it's more of a production now.
By the way, actually, I just a sort of a call to everybody else, which is, you know, feel free to, if you've got questions, you want to chime in with something, just chime in, you know, chime in with your video, you know, put your video on and join in the conversation. I mean, you know, I'm sure Erin will be okay with that.
Yeah, because I can't see the chat. I have a full screen.
Yeah,
right. So along that line, following up with the production element is planning for sequencing and choreography, you know, the logistics of who's speaking first, who's speaking next, the flow of the content, how you incorporate multimedia, things like B-roll, and be intentional about it too. We talked about having people sit on Zoom for 4 hours a day. I mean, that's just really impossible to do. But sometimes, you know, it's okay if you have an hour or so and you're ordering somebody lunch. So, or you have a yoga instructor coming in to do a bit of a stretch. I have 2 clients who recently have what we're called, I mean, lunch and learns are pretty old, right? You sit around a desk, you bring lunch in, everybody has, you know, lunch, you work, it's a working lunch, right? We've had events where we've ordered lunch through things like Seamless or DoorDash to that person's house. We gave them a menu beforehand and we said, here, pick from, you know, these are the things that these are the places you can order. Just let us know what you want to order, you know, what your dietary needs are. And, you know, 12 o'clock, the doorbell rings or their doorman calls, or, you know, there's their lunch on their doorstep. And then now they can continue to engage and they've had lunch on us. So that is another way to continue to have people engage. We've done it with a lot of journalists, believe it or not, and they love it. It's a free lunch for them. In the UK, I did it with one company where they had wine delivered to, of course it's Europe, right? It's Europe. They had wine delivered. And, you know, they all, you know, had a glass of wine while they were on an event together. So being creative like that can definitely get people to
in healthcare, it's always like the trick I always was told is if you've got to get physicians involved, bring food.
Yeah, right, right. I mean, right, exactly. So DoorDash, Seamless, even places, in the Midwest and places that don't have those delivery services, they do now. I mean, COVID has really changed a lot of that. So whether it's Instacart or using any of those other delivery services, it's worked out well. So a lot of these events have been free, and I think that's one of the reasons, well, we have found out it's, certainly one of the reasons why people have put it off and said, oh, I signed up for it, but I forgot, or I don't have time, or I'm just not going to join that, or maybe it's little value. But what we have also found is that when you offer tiered pricing, or there's, a certain pricing attached to it, it also demonstrates value, and people are willing to pay that now. At first, everything was free. I think most things are still free, but we're starting to see price tags put on different kinds of sessions, and whether it's sponsorship, John, like you mentioned, or spending money in those ways. There's certain human behavior, right? That if you attach dollars to something, there seems to have more value. And we have found that there's more attendees when you do that.
Should I try that?
You definitely should. So the last one is make it safe. Of course, you don't want anyone feeling unsafe at your event if you're doing any kind of hybrid event or regional event, or even sending food to their home. Brands are trusting us to make sure that they feel safe. Again, one of the companies that I support created something called Event Safe, where they have put up plans for plexiglass and signs on the floor and all the COVID stuff that we're used to these days, to try to get the events industry moving back into a little bit of what we were pre-COVID and I guess it was March 15th when everything shut down. So this is
so HIMSS is planning on, is scheduled for next August. So they've moved it out. They've moved it from March to August, and I think they're still planning that that's what's going to happen. Who knows how and when, whether and how and how that will happen. But
yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, it'll feel very different. There'll be lots of, we've all seen it already. You going into your local deli, or if you head into any grocery store, the plexiglass that's there, the social distancing signs, the mask wearing. I mean, it's all of that is going to play out in events. We certainly won't see the numbers that we have ever seen before at Javits Center or any of the other, big convention center. And so it'll certainly be a change, whether you spread that out over time and make the event longer, or you just cut down on the number of attendees and do more about the hybrid model like we've been talking about here, where you give the option, is yet to be seen. But I know the events industry has been shut down for 8 months. Most of them have lost 90% of their revenue. It's been a real challenge. So moving to things like this and looking to events companies to support the organizations is really important. Otherwise, we're probably going to see that industry die if we don't. So that's been the challenge for that industry. But they're doing all these awesome creative things too. So in supporting them, it's social media. John, to your point, getting the word out there with social media, using the content for, to build your own brand with contributed articles and, blog posts, things along those lines. So it's not just this, one and done type of event. It definitely has a shelf life, and the content can continue on.